debate has been Jalen Carter or Will Anderson Jr. That's been who's the best player in the draft, who's the best defensive player in the draft. That's been the debate.
And in fact, the context has often been, I'm cool with either one of those guys.
Right. Hey, it was a huge part of my logic, frankly, of trading down to 4.
Sure.
Colts would trade up, take a quarterback. Texans would take a quarterback. Arizona would maybe trade to another team to take a quarterback, or they would take best defensive player on their board, and you would get the leftover one. I don't believe in waiting for the leftover quarterback, but I believe in waiting for the leftover at basically every other position. Like, oh, the best 3 technique or the best edge rusher, they're both difference makers.
Sure.
You do it. Now with Jalen Carter, it might make the trade down scenario a little bit more complicated.
It's a little dicier, unless you're willing to go to a different position or that kind of thing.
So today, Jalen Carter stole the headlines with the 2 misdemeanor charges coming out of Atlanta for his role in the fatal car crash back on January 15th. But the other player in that discussion spoke today, Will Anderson Jr. I don't know how much of him you've watched in terms of highlight videos or tapes or anything like that.
I've watched him, and I've watched the speed off the edge. I've watched the strength when the tackle has decided to worry about the speed. I've seen him get doubled. I've seen all that. What I haven't done is heard him talk very much at all.
And I want to get to him talking in a second, but in case I assume the majority of the audience hasn't, and even when you're watching Alabama football,
there's a lot to watch.
Well, yeah, and maybe you're just not zeroing in on one player. Will Anderson Jr., 3-year starter at Alabama. He won a national championship.
Alabama!
He was the Cotton Bowl MVP. He also played in so he played in the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. Won a national championship. 2-time Bronco Nagurski Trophy Award winner for the best linebacker in the country.
Two-time
sophomore. How about this? 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
Good conference.
2-time unanimous All-American, and he won the Bednarik Award for top overall defensive player. So best linebacker, won it twice. Best defensive player, won it once. Best defensive player in the SEC, twice. Unanimous All-American, both times. Had a 17.5 sack season, and then this past year had a 10-sack season. And generally speaking, a monster. 6'4", 245, can do anything and everything as an edge player in football.
So, linebacker. Bears in a 4-3 would have Will Anderson putting his hand on the ground.
Yeah, it would be a defensive end. Yeah, I mean 6'4", 240. I mean that's
should be able to do that.
No problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's prototypical. I mean, hell, what's Khalil Mack? What's his
Khalil Mack, who has been an edge rusher in both.
He was a first team All Pro in both. Yeah, 6'3", 247. So Will Anderson is 6'4", 243. So they are the same measurables.
All right, so we need Will Anderson to be 1 inch shorter. Is what we need.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah,
I know what he could do. He could give that inch to the arms of Peter Skoronski.
I'd be very generous of him.
Right? Hey, Pete, come here. Take this off my head. Put it on your arms. Let's go.
I'd be very, very.
Now we got a draft class.
Very generous. So, Tanya, we cuts or a chunk? What do we got here?
We got a little chunkage here. This may be confirmation bias, but after the Jalen Carter news came out today, I immediately went to the Will Anderson tape. I was like, all right, kid, tell me something good here. But it's funny you mentioned Khalil Mack because he comes up in this thing as well. But I think, it doesn't matter to Bears fans how these guys sound in front of the media, but this is a job interview in a lot of ways, not only with the combine stuff, but also with the team interviews, but also with the media. So how do you handle yourself? What can we know about you? It's all we have to go on right now within the college tape. But I think when the Bears listen to this kid and they have their one-on-one with him, if they haven't already, I think they're going to like a lot of what they hear. And I see this through a Bears lens and through a Coach Eberflus lens. So should we just hear the kid?
Well, let me tell you, I love the thought process of we don't know much about these two guys as people. And today we learned a lot about Jalen Carter, seemingly. and now let's learn a lot about Will Anderson.
Yeah, and
it feels good.
And he did have a meeting, we know, with the Bears at the Combine,
Yes.
but those are the brief ones. He hasn't come to the facility yet.
7 teams, he said.
Yeah, and we'll have more on that with the Bears report with Mark Grody at 5 o'clock. But here is Will Anderson selling himself. It is a job interview.
I'm super excited. All the work has been good, but I feel like what I bring to the table, just consistency, being humble. Whatever culture I'm in, I'm going to do things the right way, and I think that's what sets me apart. I feel like football is all about embracing the change. So, no matter what type of defense I get in, I'm going to adapt to it, and I'm going to be able to embrace the change and embrace the challenge that's there, and learn the lessons that come with it. And that's what I'm very excited about. Just whatever defense I get in, learning how to operate throughout it, and having fun doing it.
Will, you talk about being humble. How do you stay humble when everybody's talking about you being one of the top 3 picks?
One lady, Terry Anderson, my mom, she always gonna keep me grounded. It's about what you have in here, and that's what's carried me to this point in my life. Always knowing that whatever I got going on, my mentality, my mindset is not going to change, and that's what I approach during the week of practice, and that's what I approach in the game. Being in Alabama made me very versatile, dropping in coverage, playing a 4-5 technique, 6 technique, 7, all that type of stuff, helping me, learn pass rush moves, run. So when I dissect myself, I see myself as a very versatile player that can do just about anything. But that's thanks to Coach Saban. He trusted me a lot. He's seen a lot in me. He's seen the potential, and it helped me mold the player I am today. So when I look back at myself, I just feel like Alabama made me a very versatile player. You can see what the coach did at Philadelphia. He had his guys on the edge going. That's something that, I really like. Get on the edge and go. So I'm very excited about that. This is what we dreamed of as little kids, and we're getting the opportunity to go out there and make our dreams come true.
Will, your nickname, the Terminator, is that something you hope sticks at the next level?
I hope so, but I got to earn it when I get there.
What makes a great pass rusher?
Yeah, what makes a great pass rusher is being able to affect the quarterback and just getting sacks. Get him to get off his spot, throw interceptions, helping other people make sacks, get him to throw incomplete balls out of bounds. That's what makes an efficient pass rusher. Just not getting sacks, but affecting the quarterback in different ways.
Who are your favorite pass rushers as you started watching the game?
Yeah, for me, mine's with Nick Bosa, Von Miller, and Khalil Mack. I watched those guys heavily throughout college.
Will, you talked about your passion for the game. Is there a childhood memory where that kind of spawned from?
Yeah, so football, it really didn't click for me at first. I was just out there, but it kind of started my sophomore year of high school. I had a new coach, Coach Clifford Fed, and honestly, one day he had made me cry in the weight room because I couldn't lift the weight, and he's like, go down to the last rep. And then after that, my whole mentality, my whole mindset for the game, my passion for the game changed, and I started loving it. I started embracing that challenge. I started embracing him getting on me, and it got to the point where we had spring break, winter break. I'm like, Coach, I want extra work. Come on, I don't want to be doing what everybody else doing. Can you come meet me up at the high school? And it started getting to the point where I'm challenging him at practice, we gonna let practice go by like that? No pass today and stuff like that. And that's when I started embracing the game and loving the game and having passion for it.
Man,
listen. So that's a 10 out of 10 job interview. And then when you pair that with Matt Eberflus's almost cliche, we got to judge if you love the game. Do you love football? How much do you love football? We really want to judge. Do you love football? Are you married to the game? Is life the game? Is
his wife the game?
Is he married to the game?
Yeah, it isn't. It isn't for everybody, and that comes down to the number one thing: the love of football.
Yeah, so you hear, I could definitely see Matt Eberflus being like, fine, I can't have my 3 technique. Give me the guy that loves football as much as Will Anderson loves football.
Give me that guy.
He sounded great. I liked also, he mentioned some things that he noticed watching NFL players.
Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Von Miller.
And it also said what Philadelphia did with their defensive linemen and moving guys around.
Paying attention.
Because it has surprised me in my years of being in locker rooms and talking to athletes or whatever of just I didn't really have a favorite NFL team growing up. It can be a means to an end or something that they do because they love it, but they don't really study it. They like playing the game but not watching the game.
Yeah,
it seems like
that
a guy
was in
who loves
the context of the Cardinals moving up. The Cardinals moving up to get him. It's oh yeah, Shane Steichen, I saw what he did with Philly with the defense. So
nice.
Either they had their meeting or he knows enough about what they do in he's on their radar.
All right, yeah, so that's smart.
And also the self-awareness to have a moment in mind and comfortability of sharing it when asked essentially, was there a formative moment when you started being good? And he brings up that moment where he had to get get challenged by the coach, and he realized, oh yeah, I got to respond to a challenge by embracing it, and I got to turn it around like that. So that is a mature dude, and I can tell why Tanny was touched by the football angel as he listened to that today.
Yeah, and so, polls talked about multipliers. So if you're going to be an edge rusher, are you requiring 2 blockers? That's basically what the multiplier is, right?
Yeah, where the offensive line slides down to take care of you.
Yeah, it's an 11-on-11 game. Mm-hmm. Do you require more than the offensive tackle to block you? Do you require a tight end to not run out into the route tree? Then your secondary is covering fewer guys. Do you require a running back to stay in to chip on you? And then that is one less guy going out,
Yeah.
If that's what he is, it's great. And so I watched, like a 4-minute YouTube compilation of him today, and everybody looks amazing on their highlights. But what was impressive was that it wasn't just like if you think about like a guy like Von Miller,
speed around the edge,
and just being more like faster than everybody. He had a lot of inside stunt and gain moves where he was just like overpowering tackles and bull rushing people back into the middle of it. And this is SEC competition we're talking about.
Yeah.
And like tackling guys in the A gap as where he was lining up on the edge. It's like, oh, so he's blowing up the offensive line and making a play in the middle of the field as opposed to making a play around the edge of the field.
See, the art of edge rushing, the art of that pass rush is such a beautiful thing, learned by so many Chicagoans as they watched Richard Dent or watching Julius Peppers or
Khalil Mack.
watching Khalil Mack, because it is that thing of trying to use your speed to get around, and as soon as they're waiting on speed, changing your direction, going to a bull rush. It is that using one move to set up another. And the more you study and the more you give a crap and have passion for it, then the better you will be. And so absolutely, it's so interesting because I'm sitting here thinking, Danny, about all the different coaches I've heard. I mean, we've got Tressman in there somewhere. You got to love football, right? I mean, there's so many different coaches and GMs we've heard forever saying, do you love the game? But it's true. It's absolutely true. So it's both the cliche and a very, in my opinion, legit separator of talent.
Well, where it gets dicey for me is that sometimes coaches or front office people dock you for having interests outside of football. Like, oh, you read books? Like, oh, you like fashion or movies, or you have other interests? And it's like, well, okay, let's not be insane. But people take it to the extreme, and they're like, well, did Andrew Luck really love football?
Right.
How likely are you once you get paid, if you don't really love it, to continue working on it? And I could see why that would be something that you would want to scout and try to judge in a player. Hey, if I give you generational money, are you still going to work your ass off? But most of these guys, I would think, to get to that level, have worked so hard. They are competitionaholics. Like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to do my 2-a-days. I'm going to go to the weight room. And then if I went home and I, read some fiction instead of just my playbook 24 hours a day, that wouldn't necessarily turn me off. But yeah, a love of football and a commitment to the game is something that basically all of these guys believe in.
I love football.
Love football. So where I think we can tie the room together is
if we get a nice area rug.
Correct. Thank you. If Ryan Poles wants to trade down, which he does, he said it yesterday, and if he then wants to take a top flight defensive player, if it's going to go quarterback, doesn't it feel exceptionally likely that Will Anderson Jr. is going to go in front of Jalen Carter?
Oh, absolutely.
So it feels like Jalen Carter might have fallen to 4 as his best position, as best possible. He might fall out of the first round. We don't know. We'll see how the legal process goes. But if it's going to go quarterback, Will Anderson, can't trade down to 3. Cardinals are looking to draft a player at 3 or trade down themselves.
Right. So you could, I still think that you trade to 4. You trade to 4, and I think you do it before free agency and see what you get. To me, that still makes the most sense in the world. Maybe you get DeForest Buckner, maybe you get Michael Pittman, maybe you don't get any players, whatever it is, whatever deal you work out. And so you're sitting there as you go in free agency, and you do your best you can in free agency, knowing. And then by the time the draft comes, maybe Arizona's traded down with another quarterback team. And you believe that quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. You might know that, or you might learn that on draft night. Maybe Arizona does it on draft night.
So that's like the Fields draft where it went Lawrence, Wilson, Trey Lance.
Right. Exactly. So it's completely on the board that does that. Arizona doesn't need a quarterback.
Right.
So they could trade down.
Well, they might, but they've decided they don't need a quarterback.
They've decided they don't.
Yeah.
They've decided they don't. So you might trade down to 4 and sit there and have Will Anderson fall to you at 4, which is great. But then if he doesn't, have your backup plan ready, which might be to trade down again to another team that wants a quarterback.
Well, then because then it
to
gets
7 or 8 or 9.
Then, like, if you're looking for an edge, how close do you have Tyree Wilson, the All-American from Texas Tech?
Yes. Or Miles Murphy from Clemson.
How close do you have those guys to Will Anderson Jr. in your grade?
And that's a huge question that they need to know the answer to very, very confidently. Is one of those guys a blue on Ryan Poles' board?
Yeah.
Or are they a red and they'll drop down?
Yeah.
Because Tyree Wilson said today at the Combine that the Bears are one of the teams he's met with.
Well, that was, the Bears are going to meet with, I think you could do like 30 one-on-one interviews at the Combine, if I remember correctly. So, because they're like 15 minutes. They're very short, and how teams handle it, for the most part, is they want to ask every player the exact same questions. They ask them in these interviews because they want to get a database of how you answered the same question. They want to have some sort of uniformity to the interview. And then they will do, they might do something specific for quarterbacks in terms, or defensive ends in terms of the plays on the board. But like for the most part, it is a uniform, quick car wash interview, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then the guys that they really like off of that, they then will bring them in for individual workouts out at Haugh Hall.
Yeah.
Or they'll go like Ryan Pace did to, North Carolina and have the dinner with James McMahon and be impressed that he showed up in the camera. So, I mean, they're gonna talk to all of them.
For sure. But we all know it has happened before that the second or third highest rated edge rusher has ended up the best edge rusher of a draft class.
Every position, right? Lane Johnson was the third tackle in that draft. Sometimes Pat Mahomes was the second quarterback. Yeah, absolutely.
Chandler Jones went after Shea McClellan.
Ooh, that was a tough one.